Every artist encounters this on daily projects or on projects with repetitive tasks that you create over and over again. So the goal is to work smarter, not harder. So why you don't create tools that helps you to create and finish tasks much faster and much more easy. In Houdini, you have the possibility to create recipes or HDAs, Houdini Digital Assets. And it's so easy to create Houdini Digital Assets that you can easily customize and you can expose every value that you need into your HDA. By just going into the settings, you can customize it, change it, apply, and add some more settings into your UI. So Houdini Digital Assets allows you to create compact functional systems within one node, and you can create your own customizable UI where you can control every setting inside Houdini. Hello and welcome to the second episode for the ZGI workflow playlist. And in this episode, I want to show you two HDAs for Houdini that I'm currently working on. So here is a simple scene I created in Houdini, just a cube with a floor. And now I load up my HDA, pressing Tab key, HDA, and the HDA is called Material HDA. So you can see that this node comes in with two input ports and one output port. The input port is set as requirement for GeoMaterial 1, and the second input is required for GeoMaterial 2. Then I have the output port here where I can continue the chain. All right, so what I do now is I connect the subcreate 1 and the subcreate 2 into that HDA, activate the HDA and delete that one. And you can see that nothing has changed. To activate these two inputs, I have to come up here. You can see that here I have the geo texture material and the geo non-texture material. And in these two slots, I have to assign those new subcreate or those new assets that I plugged in into these inputs. Okay, so let's do that by just click and drag the node into the slot right there and click and drag that right here. All right, so now you can see that the scene has changed and the floor is black and the cube is just a gray color. So let's change this. Go to the Material HDA node, and in the properties, you can see that I have all the settings that I need to create a basic, simple material. So let's start up with the color. I can click and load in a color. Let's bring in the roughness map. Let's choose one of those. And then the normal map, click, load the normal map in. And you can see how fast it actually is to apply the textures on the floor. So sometimes I need displacement, so I can load in displacement maps as well. And I can use the displacement power. It depends on how far I want to have this displacement. In this case, I don't need any displacement map. So here in this setting, scale texture, I can scale up and down my texture that is applied. So in this case, I shrink it down so you can see that the tiles are now smaller. And here is the normal power. All right, so before we can see something when I start the renderer here, I need my second HDA. And the second HDA I can plug into the output of the Material HDA. And I press Tab, HDA, and the second one called HDRI HDA. With this one, when I activate this, you can see that my HDRI is applied to my scene. And the good thing about this HDA is I can switch between different HDRIs for look depth workflow. So I can see how the materials behaves in different light conditions. All right, back into the material HDA, and you can see that everything is applied. I reduce the clear coat. We come to the settings later, and let's start the Karma XPU. All right, so now what we can see here is that the texture is applied. Maybe the bump and the normal map is a bit too strong, so I can reduce this easily by just pointing down the normal power to 0.2. And now you can see that the normal is reduced. So the ground is very shiny. So what I can do is I can control the roughness here, right? So I can bring up the roughness. And now you can see that the material is more rough now. And you also can see how fast and easy it is for me now to control the most used settings to create a realistic material with this HDA. So now what if I want to apply an imperfection or a kind of a dust layer on top of this material? So the most users when they apply imperfections, they apply the imperfections into the roughness input of the material, which is not correct, okay? Because the dust, it sits on top of an existing material. The reflection behavior of the material will not change because it has dust on top of it, okay? So the top layer, so the dust or the imperfections layer sits on top of an existing material. And this I can drive here with the clear coat. So when I activate the clear coat, it's adding an extra layer of reflection on top of that material. And now we can drive this clear coat by loading in an imperfection map. And I choose this one. And to see something, I can activate the amount of the clear coat and change the pivot, which means the contrast between white and black. And now you can see that this imperfection map is applied on top of my existing floor material. And I can tweak and change the values until I found a great balance between the imperfection and the dust layer and the reflectedness of this floor material. So let's reduce the roughness of the floor and just play around with the settings right there. Just bring a bit more contrast. All right, so something like this, and you can see that we have the nice reflection on the floor and we have this imperfection on the floor itself. So now let's jump into the second material, and you can see on top here, the second tab, which is the plastic and metal. And this is corresponded to the second material input. And what I can do now, and these settings will affect the cube. So I can make a metallic cube like this. I can change the roughness of the material, or I can set this as a plastic, right? I can change the color from this cube. I can make those changes, and the absorption distance of the subsurface scattering, adjust it, and start the render and see what we have. All right, so now you can see that this subsurface scattering material is applied. Of course, it's not perfect. It needs another lighting maybe and some more adjustments, but you get the idea. I can create easily a basic subsurface scattering material. Here in this material, I can also apply normal maps and I can apply imperfection maps. It's the same thing that you saw in the first texture material tab. Here, these three sliders are the same three sliders, just linked to this specific material type here. What I also can do is I can create a glass material. Let's change the color a bit, and we make a tinted glass material. And you can see how fast and easy it is for me to create these 3 different material types: a texture material, plastic or metal material, subsurface scattering material, and a glass material. All right, so this is my material HDA I created and I'm still working on. There are some things that I like to change. Maybe I reorganize some settings so it's better readable, and I also want to make sure that every naming here has the same font. And maybe I will apply some more settings and more sliders to control the material. So it's a work in progress and it's not final yet. This is the first look of this material HDA. One side note is that this material HDA now works specific for Karma XPU and Karma GPU. So I can show you this when I start here V-Ray render, right? You can see that the color material will get transferred, but the normal maps and the scaling parameters and all that stuff will not be applied. And this has something to do that the V-Ray material setup and the material node tree is a bit different than the MTLX standard material tree. And also the Redshift material node tree will look a bit different. The settings are a bit different and has to be connected in a different way. One solution could be the OpenPBR material node tree, and I will test this out if the OpenPBR node tree will allow me to use this material HDA in different renderers. So the goal is that this material HDA, when it's final, it can be used for every renderer. I hope this HDA, when it's finished, and it will probably take another time, I will make it available for the community. All right, so I hope you liked this kind of show through of the development of a HDA. And if you have any questions, please feel free to post it in the comments or on our Discord server. And we will see. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And see you in the next one very soon. And bye, everybody.